Good evening, our viewers and ladies and gentlemen in the stadium this evening. Thank you so much for attending the mayoral debate, Municipal Election 2018 coming up. The debate's been organized by the Sault Ste. Marie Association of Ratepayers, so a big thank you to them. And this is Tim Murphy. I'm Luann Young, and we're from ONTV, so we're very happy to be here. We're the moderators for you this evening. In the simplest of terms, the Association of Ratepayers is made of taxpayers who are concerned with the direction of our municipal government. They are a group of taxpayers talking, they call themselves. Our focus tonight is the debate amongst mayoral candidates because a mayor, as leader and head of council, sets the tone, of course, for the rest of council. So thank you also to our techies from OnTV for video coverage and live streaming of the debate tonight. We would also like to thank all the volunteers. We'll mention them by name a little bit later on in the evening. We're pleased to introduce 3 of our 4 mayoral candidates. Incumbent, Mayor Christian Provenzano. Challenging candidates, Rory Ring. And Mr. Ted Johnston. And our 4th candidate, Kamal Martinovic, due to illness, sends his regrets this evening. So earlier tonight, the candidates drew numbers to determine who would be first to open with opening remarks. Opening remarks are going to be limited to 90 seconds. You'll hear a bell when there are 20 seconds remaining, just as a friendly reminder, as opposed to us saying, stop talking. So first, we invite Mayor Christian Provenzano with his opening remarks. Mr. Provenzano.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting tonight. I want to recognize the ratepayers and thank OnTV for broadcasting this. It's important that people have an opportunity to view all the candidates. I want to thank my fellow candidates for participating tonight. And we want to acknowledge the traditional territory of Anishinaabe and recognize the Métis Nation of Ontario, Latchwater First Nation, and Garden River First Nation. So, when I ran for mayor 4 years ago, I decided to run for mayor because I felt that our community was going to go into a difficult period. When you're a lawyer, you're sometimes a canary in a coal mine, and you can see things happening or you can see things not happening. And I remember having a conversation with my father, and I told him that I was considering doing it because I felt that I could be helpful, and that would be an important and good period for me to contribute. And I decided to do it, and I was successful in becoming the mayor, and we certainly did head into a fairly difficult period. We had a significant drop in oil prices that affected Daenerys. We know our major employer went into CCEA. We had the instability at the OLG. But we dealt with all of those challenges, I would suggest, well. And while we dealt with those challenges, we focused on some other things. We focused on making life more affordable. I'm happy to talk tonight about how we did that. We focused on improving the quality of life in our community, and I'm happy tonight to talk about how we did that. I respect the bell. I think that was to indicate my time is up.
20 seconds.
20 seconds.
I have 20 seconds. So I look forward to having this discussion tonight. I think it's important that we do, and I appreciate all of you attending to be part of it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Mayor Christian Provenzano. And now Ted Johnston.
I ran for mayor 4 years ago more as a social experiment than anything else. I just wanted to see if somebody who was an ordinary citizen, didn't put any money forward, could actually run and get anything out of it. I got almost 800 votes. I didn't spend a dime. All I did was talk to people. This time around is a little different. I put a little more preparation into it, a little more effort into it. I had a recent derailment with bad health, but that's fortunately over with. So now we're back to the grind of it all. One of my key things that I've looked at is public engagement, public input. Public input is absolutely vital to a democracy. A democracy will die without public input. You must have the citizens engaged in their democracy. It's the only way to find success in it. I have been exposed to countries where they didn't have a democracy, where they were willing to try anything to get what we already have. So I'm just curious as to what we have here. And you're all here, you came out here, you made the effort to come here. How many of you believe public input is vital to the success of your democracy? Can we? Okay, that's clearly a majority. Clearly a majority considered that. So That's how easy it is to get public input. Just ask them.
Ted Johnston, thank you so much. And now let me introduce you to Rory Ring.
Ciao, mi chiamo Rory Ring. Bonjour, je m'appelle Rory Ring. Buzu Rory Ring Dishnakas. Hello, my name is Rory Ring. I'm very excited about the great potential of our city, and it's demonstrated right here today. And I reiterate as well and echo the mayor's gratitude for you holding this event today, also in recognition of the Robinson Treaty. The hope and opportunity that our campaign, my platform, can deliver will make very real and positive difference in the lives of Sault Ste. Marie residents. I spent the past week in talking to over 6,000 citizens and stakeholders in our community. I've been able to take what I've heard and I believe develop a vision and a future that represents you, the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie. A vision that is based on action, not more studies, not more consultants, and not more committees. A vision that puts the citizen at the very center of the way the city runs and delivers to you services and opportunities that you deserve while making our community more affordable. It comes down to bold, innovative, visionary leadership. Today I'm proud to have that platform and stand before you and debate the elements of it. To achieve lower taxes for everyone, we need more taxpayers here in the city. We need to attract and retain more investment to our community, and we need to develop greater input and prosperity from our private sector partners. We must take the experience from other communities to make life more affordable for our residents and to attract investment. We must stop avoiding the hard work of fact-finding simply because we may not like what we see. It's time for the residents to receive the leadership they deserve from a mayor that has the ability to move the community forward. My platform has those elements.
And just before we continue, just a couple of housekeeping things I'd like to mention. If you don't mind, please make sure that your cell phones are turned off, and washrooms are out this door to the left.
Unless you're at home, in which case your washrooms are where they normally are.
And you can go whenever you like. Just turn us up loud.
You can take us with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on to the questions now. Thank you, gentlemen, for your opening remarks. We'll now start with the questions for the candidates. Each of you will have 1 minute to respond to the question. After each of you has responded, the other candidates will have 1 minute should they care to rebut. Again, you will hear a bell when there is 20 seconds remaining.
Then the double bell will occur when your 20 seconds is up.
A ding ding. All right. First question is a general topic. In your opinion, let's start with Rory on this one, and we'll come this way. How about that? Since Rory closed, we'll come from right to left. So Rory, you don't mind if I call you Rory, do you?
No, and you are looking rather fashionable, I must say.
It's a nice color shirt there, Rory.
I hate orange.
It's your favorite color, liar.
So,
we called each other at home. All right. Rory, in your opinion, how would you rate the performance of Sault Ste. Marie's current council? You have 1 minute.
Well, I think current council has done the best to its ability given the constraints that have been placed upon it. I don't know if you know or not, but the council agenda is set by the mayor, the CAO, and the deputy CAO. Your ward representative is actually not represented within the formulation of the agenda for council. That is fundamentally a way of not representing those who are in your community through an elected official. As mayor, I would immediately change that practice and have a revolving set committee that represents your wards and the individuals whom you represented from your wards. So given those constraints, that will open up the ability for us to really understand greater what the needs of our Sioux residents are. And that's all part of making Sioux residents first in the decision-making process at council.
Thank you very much. Any rebuttals, gentlemen?
Oh, so we don't answer the question, we just do a rebuttal?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So obviously, I would think that this current council has done a good job. Frankly, if you look at a lot of our decisions were significant decisions. We never kicked anything down the road, and a lot of our decisions carried with the majority. But I do want to speak to the point that Mr. Ring has raised here, and the point he's raised goes to our agenda review process. What Mr. Ring may not know is that the agenda review process was changed prior to me becoming the mayor. I had nothing to do with our agenda review process. But it was changed prior to me becoming the mayor because there was a complaint to the ombudsperson. And the ombudsperson found that our agenda review process as a city violated the statutes. And the agenda review process we used is very similar to the one that Mr. Ring is advocating. So the city staff, prior to me becoming mayor, changed the agenda review process so that it complied with the Municipal Act. And we are currently using an agenda review process that complies with the Municipal Act. So I am always open to councillor input, and Councillor Shoemaker is a great example that councillors who want things on the agenda get things on the agenda.
Rebuttal, Mr. Johnston?
I don't really have much of a rebuttal with regard to anything Mr. Ring said. I think that he's quite sincere in what he said. As for Mr. Provenzano's reply to that rebuttal, if this came from a recommendation from the Ombudsman, I think that the next step with that would have to be we need to go back and revisit that. We need to lobby the provincial government to make changes because obviously the system doesn't work very well. If the statute says that this is the way things must be, we have to lobby to get that fixed because that's not a good way to do it. If you want public input, you have to include what the public is doing. If you want council to function properly, everybody on council has to be able to take their part and bring their thing to the table without any interference from anybody else.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Provenzano. Core services and policy is the topic. The question is, what do you consider to be essential core services that the municipality must provide to its members of the community? You have 60 seconds.
So that's a great question. And the reality is the difference between mandatory services and discretionary services is statutory. So there are a number of pieces of legislation that require we provide certain services. So it's a legal question. But from a practical...
Sorry, Mr. Mayor Provenzano, may I hold, is his microphone working properly?
Can you guys hear?
Pardon me, Christian, I'm just going to give you this microphone. Luann, I'm going to borrow your
You
microphone.
could want to see if this was... Maybe it's not on. Is it on?
You're good
we
now.
Good? Check.
Is that better?
Welcome to live TV, ladies and gentlemen. Isn't it exciting? We'll start your time again,
So we're going to
Mayor
take that from the
Provenzano.
top. So the difference between core services, frankly, mandatory services and discretionary services is statute-based. It's a legal question. So there are a number of services that as a municipality we have to provide. But when you look at the services that the City of Sault Ste. Marie is currently providing, the ones that are discretionary, we still have to do. For instance, IT is a discretionary service. We don't have to provide IT infrastructure, but to do all the other things we do, we need the IT infrastructure. I'll give you another example. Our seniors drop-in centers. They're not core mandatory services. We're not required to provide those. But I think it's essential that we do. So I think that the bigger question is, what are we doing right now that we maybe shouldn't be doing or that we could stop doing? And if you look at that, there really is very little left that we're doing that we don't need to be doing. All of the services that we're providing are essential services from my perspective, and that we should continue to provide the services. We should always look for ways to do it most efficiently so we respect taxpayer dollars. But I don't think that this municipality is engaged in a whole bunch of activities that it shouldn't be engaged in, and that would be hard to determine are discretionary.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson, will you care to rebut?
Mr. Provenzano used the word "I" several times. That's an example of what's wrong with the city today, what's wrong with the community. You are the ones who decide what core services should be. Yes, there's a legal statute. Yes, we have to provide the mandatory ones. But above that, you are supposed to decide what is a core service. It is up to you to tell us what a core service is going to be, how we're going to fund it, and whether or not you're willing to pay more or less for it. Yes, there will be differences between people. It's a democracy, majority rules. That's how it should be.
Mr. Ring, would you care to rebut?
Yes, thank you. Core services. Do we really care who picks up our garbage? As long as it gets picked up. Do we care if our senior citizens who have been paying taxes for 40 or so more years, living in their residence on a fixed budget, have the ability to have someone come and shovel out the end of their driveway? This is about core services that deliver a return on the taxpayers' dollars for their investment in the city. We do not need to spend $55,000 annually to maintain garbage collection when it's proven that throughout many communities in North America, it will save the municipality money, it will build more efficiency in the system, and it'll allow the municipality to do other things that benefit the citizenry. We use $700,000 of reserves, which have to be paid back by the citizens. We use $1.7 million to buy bins out of the reserves, which have to be paid back by the citizens. Core services are driven by the needs of the citizens.
Thank you very much. Again, with core services and policy, we're going to start with you first, Ted. In the past, do you consider due diligence has been exercised in hiring administrators of core services? For example, the police chief, the fire chief, chief medical officer of Algoma Public Health.
There was a lot of flack over what happened with the fire service. Anybody who looks at that is going to look at it and say, have they never heard of a background check? Did they do a good job? No. Was that a one-off? They just are human beings and made a mistake? Quite possibly. Did they make good decisions elsewhere? I'm absolutely certain they did. But the one stain overshadows everything else. That's human nature. People don't remember the 10 successes, they remember the one failure. So we have to put systems in place to prevent that from ever happening again. And I don't know if that's been done.
Rebuttal? Rory?
I believe this is a very strong link to what is a priority for our citizens. Our frontline people deal with many challenges that we face here in Sault Ste. Marie, and they have the tools, the capabilities to ensure that they're safe and the citizens they are servicing are safe. And we can't do that on a 2/3 commitment. We need to make sure that we're speaking to those people who are delivering the actual services to determine what they need and what will make them capable of delivering on the expectations that we have as citizens. So when we take a look at the money that has been wasted in terms of severances, which is probably north of $1 million, which we still yet have to have the city divulge to us, we really have to ask ourselves, what has been the base of that foundational decision? And were there really strictly considerations that had the citizen back in the center of that decision making? We need to make sure our services have what they need.
Thanks, Rory.
So I think,
Rebuttal, Christian?
yeah, sure. I think the question was about hiring of senior administration at the city. So the mayor and council are not integrally involved in hiring beyond those senior levels, but we have involvement in those senior levels and we're responsible for those senior levels. For my part, I was involved in the hiring of the current fire chief and I was involved in the hiring of the current police chief. I can assure the community that those are very significant, thorough processes. They produce good results. And I'm not interested in criticizing previous processes or previous mayors and councils on any hirings that they might have done. I don't see that gets us anywhere. I think it's a matter of looking forward and making sure that we have good people in place now. And I'm confident that over the previous term, the processes that I participated in have resulted in that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next question. In the past 4 years, what do you feel have been the net benefit improvements made by our current council to the core services? Rory?
That's a very challenging question. I think the council has taken the efforts to improve the delivery of services to our community, but I wouldn't be standing here if I thought they had done a full job. We're a growing city. We need a full-time commitment. I think your leadership needs to be able to apply full-time effort to what our city needs today. We are not a small town. We need to make sure that we're focusing again on the things that will deliver those core services in the most efficient way we possibly can, while recognizing the budget constraints of the municipality. Taxes have gone up 11%. We need to make sure that we are taking a rational approach to those service deliveries, and we are making decisions that will give the highest impact and the greatest value for the most efficient cost.
Rebuttal, Christian?
Sure. So the question was service delivery improvement. You know, I think the city council made a wise decision to maintain the capacity to pick up garbage within the community. I think that will lead to positive and better garbage service. I think it's good that we have that capacity. We're doing the best with the roads. We have a big deficit. We have a big deficit with our roads, and one of the reasons why we have a big deficit with our roads is that the road budget was fixed for a number of years in the 90s, and money wasn't invested in the roads, and that's what you're seeing now. Problems you're seeing now are because money wasn't invested in the roads before, not because money isn't invested in the roads now. But I want to talk about taxes because I think tax is a really good point. So Mr. Ring has a number of times indicated that taxes have gone up 11 to 12%. And what he's doing is he's taking the levy and he's aggregating it, which I understand. But what Mr. Ring is leaving out is that the municipal levy has a number of different components in it. And the component of the municipal levy that this mayor and council were responsible for, city spending, that component was an increase of 6.05% over 4 years, one of the lowest in the province of Ontario, less than inflation.
Ted?
Interesting on both counts. Fact of the matter is, the past does matter. You can't blame the past for what's happening today. Yes, it impacted it. You got to find ways to overcome that. The stewardship that is being shown today is nowhere near what we need to see. We need to see massive improvements made quickly. In the last 4 years, the value of my home has remained almost stagnant, but my taxes have gone up. My wages have not kept pace with those increases. Here we are sitting in a city with crumbling infrastructure, higher crime, higher unemployment, lower outlook to the future, and people are saying we're doing well and we did well? No, we did not do well, but we should and can do better.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our next question is core services and policies again, and we'll start with Mr. Provenzano. Our emergency services are all behind on their contract negotiations. Police are coming up on a year without a contract. EMS is closing in on 2 years, and fire is at 5 years. Their wages generally follow a comparator system and will surely rise. How will you mitigate those costs, and how will you direct staff to get caught up on these contracts?
So I believe police, we're bargaining police now, and we bargained police, and police's contract is to the end of the year. So I think we're fine with police. But you're correct. We are very long on a term with fire. I think it's unfortunate that we haven't caught up with fire, and we don't have a contract with fire. There are a lot of matters that have to be resolved, as I understand it. I was under the understanding that they were resolved, particularly relating to the 24-hour shift. I recently met with some individuals from the union who told me that those matters weren't resolved. So it's certainly my direction to administration to try and get the fire contract resolved, and I'm hopeful to see it resolved. On EMS, we have bargained in good faith with EMS. We have tried to make sure that they had a package that they felt was comparable to the rest of their comparators, and we felt like we put one of those on the table. That matter is currently going to be arbitrated, and an arbitrator will make a decision on that, and then hopefully we'll have the EMS contract settled.
Ted, would you care to rebut?
I don't really have anything against what you said, because I think it's all true, but I will put this forward. The arbitration system in Ontario is a disaster. We need to lobby the provincial government to get the provincial government to change the rules regarding arbitration. What arbitration is doing to you today is basically this. Everything eventually gets arbitrated up to Toronto wages. We are a small community. We cannot afford to pay Toronto wages. We need an arbitration system that is fair to the communities it is supposed to be representing. And the only way to modify that is to lobby the provincial government for changes. It can be done. I have actually succeeded in doing it in some cases.
Rory, the floor is yours.
Arbitration is a big challenge. Question is, why do we have to go there? Why can't we sit down as a community, as stakeholders, as partners, as people working in the same direction, and get to resolution and working together? But that means you actually got to sit down and have a conversation. Not sit across the table and demand, but sit around and understand from top to bottom how our frontline services work, how they approach the challenges in our community. We obviously have a number of challenges dealing with crime, opiate addiction, and we need to ensure that we understand the full spectrum and where our frontline services are applying at any intersection of that experience. And we need to make sure that they've got the tools, the capabilities, and that they are of healthy mind and healthy spirit. And we don't do that by putting them under unnecessary pressure, because we can't sit around the table and have a positive discussion with them. We need open communication, and we need to make sure that we come to a resolution before we even get to arbitration, because it only costs everybody money.
Thank you. We'll start with Ted Johnson with this question. Again, core services and policy is the topic. Ted, what is your opinion on a review of the agreement between the City of Sault Ste. Marie and the PUC? Should Sault Ste. Marie continue to own the assets of the Public Utilities Commission?
The agreement was probably revamped about 5 years ago. I'm not 100% sure of the exact date. The Ratepayers organization was one of the driving forces behind that review. So we basically sat down with representatives from the PUC to go through their agreement and revamp it so that it made more sense to the modern era. The old agreement was massively out of date. It's been 5 years. It's probably gotten somewhat out of date again. Most of the processes and procedures that are in place probably need a review. That's no different. As for keeping on to the PUC as a public utility, oh yeah, we definitely need to keep it. Anything that is a service like that, the PUC actually generates income into the city. To sell it would be ridiculous. It's an income generator.
Thank you very much. And we'll have a rebuttal then from Rory.
Yeah, hi. I have not had the privilege of getting into the PUC contract, because obviously I don't sit in the role as mayor. But I know from observation the city is prepared to invest another $15 million into the PUC for a scheme of which we do not know will yield what kind of return for our taxpayer. Yes, it might be leading edge. Yes, it might be the newest, the latest, and greatest shiny toy in the cupboard. But do we really need it at this point in time, when we've got a shrinking community, when we have a shrinking business community, we have a stagnant GDP, and we're continually going to the trough asking our taxpayers to pay up for other things that we determine to be more of our priority, like consultants, like lawyers out of Toronto? Should we be doing those things, like garbage? We need to ask these fundamental questions before we're making investments like this. $15 million, where does that money come from, sir?
So happy to answer that. I'm not sure what Ted was referring to, because the agreements between the city and the PUC in any event, I think were all drafted around 2000, and we certainly should look at those from time to time. I know that the governance board at the PUC has spent some time looking at them over the last couple of years. But the smart grid program that Mr. Ring's referring to, I think it's one of the examples of why we should own the utility. And to be clear, I wouldn't support selling the utility. Because we own the utility, we were able to forego distribution rate increases. Because we own the utility, we were able to drive some economic change by developing our smart grid proposal. Our smart grid proposal will be the first of its kind in Canada, and the reality is that the city isn't putting $15 million in at all. A very strong determination and direction from the board was that it would have to be bill neutral, and the financing would have to come independent of the city's coffers, so no money came from the city to be invested into the PUC to have the program be put forward. But through that, we are going to be leading edge. And this is what the city needs to do. The city needs strong leadership to look forward and become innovative. We have to build the city that we want, as opposed to just simply maintaining the city that we have. And I'm very proud of this smart grid program. I think it's going to put Sault Ste. Marie in a very good position.
Next question. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll start with you, Rory. What initiatives have been taken or need to be taken to ensure that persons with physical, mental, and developmental disabilities can access the city's recreational facilities?
Certainly you have to do a review in terms of accessibility of a city, and it's an overall strategic platform, not only just to service your existing demographic changes in your community, but it's also one of the leading trends in tourism. Accessible tourism is going to become one of the largest generating sectors of the North American economy in the future as we all start to build our portfolio of age, shall we say, whether that's bad knees, bad shoulders, eyes, or ears. So we need to make sure that we're providing that accessible environment to our citizens and to tourists who come. And that means we also have to engage our business community to make sure that they're servicing those individuals that come to our community to enjoy the community and what it has to offer, whether that's having a magnifying glass in your restaurant or providing wheelchair accessible washrooms. So it is a full scope of services and attributes that we need to make sure we're providing as a city.
Ted, rebuttal?
That was good. The demographics, he's correct. The demographics are that everybody's aging. Canada's getting to be an older country. They're a less mobile country. And all of that will need to be addressed, and it all has costs added to it. But the key thing that needs to be done is to make sure that we talk to people, that we get the public input into how we can do this stuff, what we can do, where we can do it, how we can improve it. You all have the answers. You just don't realize it until people ask you the questions. I've been involved in continuous improvement for much of my adult life, and I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, when you start asking the stupid questions, people start going, hey, I never thought of that. There's a lot of improvements we can make. We just have to ask the questions.
Christian?
So yeah, I think we're all of the same mind on this. It's really important. And I think it's a lens. And it's a lens that we have to work harder to develop and really put over everything. And I think the city's made some progress in the last little while. And one of the examples I'll give is we're constructing our sidewalks differently. We're constructing our sidewalks differently. The new sidewalks won't have as many cuts in them, so that if you are going over the sidewalk in a mobility device, you don't have all of that rutting, and that it's more convenient for people to use a sidewalk. But look, this is an investment. This takes money. So this is one of the things that mayor and council will have to look at, because we have good people, Ted, doing good work. We have an accessibility committee, and they give us very concrete examples and instructions on what we need to do. But it takes money. All these things take money, and it's a matter of values, and it's a matter of priorities. I think accessibility is now moved quite a bit up the list, and I'm glad by that and excited by it, and I hope the next mayor and council continues to make decisions that make our city more welcoming and friendly and accessible.
We're going to keep the floor with you, Christian.
Okay.
Don't get too comfortable. Would you support a line-by-line, comprehensive, independent audit of the city's financial records?
Yeah, I want to start by recognizing that we did a full spending review when we were elected in the last council. We did a full spending review. But if two city councilors brought a resolution and said they wanted to bring in an auditor and to do that kind of audit, I would certainly consider that, and I would likely support it. If that was the will of council, I would likely support it. I often supported the will of council because it seemed to me that, you know, often you make a good decision when you have a discussion and a group decides they want to do something. In this case, if it was a debate the next council had and I read the debate as something that council was really interested in doing it, I wouldn't discourage it, because it's always good to have information. And if we look at the garbage issue, I supported both tendering for both sets of information, because I supported tendering for both sets of information so I could make an educated decision about which route that I wanted to take as the mayor. And we had a debate at council, and I think it was a 10-3 decision. But you have the debate after you have the information, and I would never discourage gathering information.
Rory, what do you think?
City Council resolution calling for the reduction of city department budgets by 1% 2018 after the mayor increased taxes in 2017 budget by 4.34%. The mayor voted against this on January 23rd, 2017. City Council resolution calling for the reduction of city department budgets by 1% of the 2017 budget. The mayor voted against this on May 8th, 2017. Review the city resolution to review the operation of the SR Center and find efficiencies given that it had lost $437,000 in taxpayer revenue every year for the last 5 years and is expected to lose $626 in 2018. The mayor failed to take action to address this problem. I think the record stands.
Ted?
Okay. Can you give me the question again?
Certainly, absolutely. Would you support a line-by-line, comprehensive, independent audit of the city's financial records?
4 years ago when I ran for mayor, that was the primary thing I listed, that we needed an independent financial audit. 4 years ago I said we needed that. We needed it then, we need it even more now. The books are a mess. I have gotten copies of the city budget from many years ago up until just recently. I've gone through the city budget with other people. You can drive truckloads of money through the holes in the city budget. It's terrible. And that is not an understatement. It is terrible, absolutely terrible. We desperately need a line-by-line audit to know where we are, how bad off things are, and what we can do from then on. Can we make tax savings? Maybe we can. I don't know, because right now, I don't have an accurate picture.
All right. I have the next question, and I'm posing this one to, who did we ask first last time?
You just asked me.
Then I'm not going to ask you. I'm going to ask Ted. Ted, financial stewardship is the topic. It is a popular belief that to maximize efficiencies, that the city will not need to find revenue balance from other municipal budget lines to offset decreased revenues and increasing costs. As mayor, what do you favor as a direction?
When I worked in this private industry in Southern Ontario, I worked for a large automotive supplier. They were constantly under pressure from their customers to give cost reduction. There was no other way for us to do business. If we were going to survive, we had to find ways to offer our services cheaper than they had been offered before. It was either that or they were going to go somewhere else. I was part of teams that used statistical method, proper statistical method, to sit down, to go through, and to organize savings. It had many different facets and it had many different benefits. People's job improved, people's jobs got easier, it made them feel better. We found actual cost savings, real money cost savings. The teams found ways to reduce costs. You can reduce by a substantial amount. 1 year alone, the teams I served on saved $1.3 million in operating expenses. That can be done. You just have to know how to do it.
Rory, what say you?
Ted makes a great point. Teams are essential to finding efficiencies and cost savings in an organization. And it needs to have it right across the board, continually being asked to deliver more for less. But again, you need a bottom-up strategy that allows you to talk with your frontline staff and understand what are the tools that they need to do their job more effectively. Then you need to invest in those things like artificial intelligence, like training, IT, whether it's a snowplow app or Where's My Bus app. You know, those type of things that help can find savings, drive out efficiencies, and you will not have to reduce services. You will not have to reduce personnel. You will make sure that you are getting your citizen-centered culture established in your organization and making sure that as a custodian for the taxpayer dollar, every staff member is thinking how they can deliver the best value for the taxpayer.
Now I'll ask you, Christian.
Can you just repeat the question?
Of
I want
course.
to make sure I understand.
It's a popular
I wanna
belief that to
answer.
maximize efficiencies, that the city will need to find revenue balance from other municipal budget lines to offset decreased revenues and increasing costs. So as mayor, what do you favor as a direction?
Well, look, the amount of money that we're dealing with is a fixed amount. And we have to provide a certain number of services, and we have to allocate those monies to provide those services. So, you know, you have to, if you're going to increase a service, if you're going to invest in a service, you're either going to have the taxpayer bear that cost, or you're going to find it in your budget. But I want to talk about the budget for a second. We often talk about the budget, and when we talk about the budget, we talk about the whole budget, including the local and levy boards. So the mayor and council don't have direct control over the local and levy boards. So So I'm just going to talk about the money that City Council allocates and has direct control over. In 2015, it was about $115.5 million. In 2016, we decreased that to 111.5. In 2017, it was 113.5. In 2018, it was 113.5. We have reduced the amount of money the City of Sault Ste. Marie spends and budgets to spend. But I want to just say something. Ted, your comments were really unfair to the good people that work at City Hall. You might not agree with all of them, but the budget isn't awful. We recently had an analysis of that budget. We recently got our credit rating, and the credit rating agency, which is independent of the city, said we have very good financial management. We have good, solid financial management and good budgeting processes. That's not us saying it. That's an independent third-party agency.
Rory, I'll start with you on this question. The topic is financial stewardship. Is it possible to provide the provincial recommended core services without increasing taxes?
Sure, this dovetailed into the same discussion that we just had about continuous improvement and productivity. And that's not to say that staff are doing their best right now. We always need to be achieving more, and that's just the pressure that we're under when we have a shrinking community, we have a shrinking tax base, we have a stagnant GDP, and the levy continues to rise. The mayor, in his response to me about freezing taxes, says, where are you going to find $10 million? To me, that says, I'm prepared to raise your taxes another 10%. That means if he is instilled into the next term, your property taxes would have increased almost by 22 to 25% in the terms of 8 years. We need to stop this. We need to make sure that we're doing the best we can to deliver the best services, the best value, in the most comprehensive and productivity-based way we can.
Thank you, Rory. Christian, if you'd like to speak.
So look, there are things that you can directly control, and there are things that you can't control. And the reality of municipal budgeting is there are laws that govern us. We cannot run a deficit. We cannot budget for a deficit. We cannot borrow to cover operations. It is illegal. We cannot do those things. So we budget within our ability as best as we can. But the reality is, and if you look at this, and I suggest everybody look at what Sault Ste. Marie has done over the last 4 years and compare us to any other community. One of the difficulties with the notion that I'm going to freeze your taxes is that the mayor and council are not responsible for the whole municipal levy. There are local and levy boards that have the authority to levy independent of us, and those levies roll into our levy. And over the last 4 years, our increase over 4 years was 6.05%. That's what the city council did. Now, we did levy on behalf of those other boards because we by law have to, and that's what brings us up. But over 4 years, 6%, I think that's a good job. I think that's a job well done, and I commend the councilors for working hard to get there.
Ted.
I too will commend all the people at City Hall who have done a good job. There's plenty of them. I've had the good fortune to meet some of them. That doesn't mean we can't do better. If this is doing what you're doing today, and this is doing what you plan on doing, but this is where everybody says doing well is, then doing this doesn't matter. You're still not doing well. We're in a rut. They all think, oh, this is normal. This is what we do. What did we do last year? We raised taxes. What did we do the year before that? We raised taxes and cut services. What did we do the year before that? We raised taxes. What's the initial response for everything? We raise taxes. No, you find savings. You find ways to do it better. You find new and alternative methods. You go out and you seek out what is out there. You get input from people. You find ways to do it better. There's better ways to do everything. There's always a better way to do everything, but you have to look at it and you have to ask for it.
Next up, we'll start with Christian. Again, financial stewardship. Where do you see financial waste, if any, in the city's operations and administration?
So I think I agree with Ted. You always have to try and do better, and we're doing that. One of the things that was challenging when when I started being the mayor and this council started, is the technological infrastructure of the city was really weak. So it was very difficult to understand and implement KPIs and implement budgetary measures because we had very antiquated back-end technology, and we had different departments using different methods of putting their budget together. We have, as a result of that, gone through a significant review of all of our IT in the city and looking at how we can best invest to bring our city hall up to date in their IT infrastructure. That will lead to better budgeting. I believe we can do better. I believe that we can find money, but there isn't oodles of money here that's being wasted. I do not believe that. I have worked with these people. They're good people. The city staff work hard and they care about their community. We do not have people falling all over each other at the city, and we're not wasting a significant amount of money. So any savings we can find, I think will be relatively modest.
Ted, what do you think?
That year when I saved the $1.3 million for the company I worked for, the vast majority of the people who were on the board and on the executive group for the company gave us an anticipatory of what they expected to see. They expected to see $250,000 in savings. That's what they thought there was. And I even got told privately that that was probably a high number. 7 teams from 4 plants collectively saved $1.3 million. $1 million more than what the board and the executive group thought was there. Why was that possible? The board and the executive group aren't on the floor. They aren't seeing what's going on. They aren't doing the work. It's the people doing the work that you have to get in. They're the ones who know where the cost savings are. The people standing there watching what's going on, they don't know where the cost savings are. It's the people doing it. They're the ones you got to talk to.
Rory?
The city's overall budget is about $212 million. The levy is only a small part of that, 47, 50, 53, 54%. A 1% savings is $2 million. $2 million over 4 years is $8 million. That almost eradicates the mayor's commitment to raise your taxes by $10 million. It doesn't take much to find 1%. If you make the effort, and if you look for it, and if you support resolutions that request the city departments to look for it, if you ask your frontline staff to look for it, over and beyond just filling out a piece of paper, you actually build systems that would allow them and reward them to find the savings for the taxpayer. You build a mentality and a culture that puts Sault Ste. Marie citizens first in every single decision that they make, and create that culture of return on taxpayers' dollars.
Thank you, gentlemen. Our next question, still with financial and stewardship. Ted, are our municipal taxes in line with other comparable cities in Ontario?
Are taxes in line with other cities? Again, you have to pick and choose. Are they in line with some cities? Yes. Are there some cities doing better? Yes. Are there some cities doing worse? Yes. Forget about comparing ourselves to other cities. How are we doing? Park your car down by the Bush Plain Museum, get out of it, and walk west down Queen Street to where it terminates. Take that walk, and then come and tell me that we're doing well. We're not. I'm sorry, we're not. No, we don't want to hear that, but it's true, we're not doing well. In the last 4 years, I've saw so much decline, it is pathetic. I'm mad. I'm so mad, I want to swear. We have to stop this insanity. We have to stop saying, no, we can't do something, and start saying, yes, we can do it. No, you shouldn't do that. No, you shouldn't do that. No, we can't do this. Oh, they're doing it in this community. We'll do it here. Screw all that. Do what we think we need to do.
Thanks for not swearing.
I tried.
Well, it's live TV and we don't have a 5-second delay. I found that out the hard way one morning.
Rory, what do you think?
Well, I would say we have to compare ourselves to like communities. And we have to make sure we're comparing apples to apples. We receive OMPF funding to the tune of almost $16 million, which artificially reduces our tax rate. If we did not have that, and we included our education tax rate, we would be at 1.717%. Right now, 1.36 and change. When we take the $16 million and apply it to reduce our rate, and when we take out the education tax. That in comparison, Barrie 1.23, Peterborough 1.42, Sudbury 1.48, North Bay 1.54. Why are we paying 13% more than we do in North Bay? Why? If you're trying to buy a house for $200,000 in Sault Ste. Marie compared to North Bay, your house will be better in North Bay than it will be here because you won't be able to afford the mortgage because of the difference in your property taxes. Is that fair? We are at great risk right now because with the current provincial government, we are under threat of losing OMPF. Imagine what would happen if that took place.
Christian?
So Ted's right about this. You can't compare communities to communities. You can do your best, but the reality is there's different revenue tools in different communities. North Bay, for instance, has development charges. The city of Sault Ste. Marie decided to forego development charges. That's like a different way of taxing. We have very low user fees here. There are other cities that collect money from user fees. But this is the important thing to recognize. Our tax rates over the last 4 years have largely gone down. Now, you wouldn't know that by listening to the other candidates. But I want to point something out. Mr. Ring said the mayor's committed to raise your taxes $10 million. You will never find any time in my life where I've ever said that. But that did not stop him from saying that to you.
Suit today, 2 weeks
in front
ago.
of all of us.
Quote.
So the reality, Mr. Ring, I've never interrupted you. So it's important to recognize this. Our tax rates, commercial occupied, down 7.14%. Office buildings, down 11.61%. Residential, down 13.8%. Multi-residential, down 25.5%. And shopping centers, down 7.14%. Those are all facts. From the beginning of our term to the end of it, those tax rates are down. There's more we can do, Ted. I agree. There's more we have to do. There are a lot of challenges in this community, but you have to do it as part of a team, and you have to work with city staff, and you have to work with the council that's elected, and I think we've done a pretty good job in trying to do our best over the last 4 years.
All right then. I have the next question, and we'll start with Christian. Jobs and economy. I'll start with Rory. I'll start where I want to start. I'm going to start with Rory.
What's your name?
I don't know who I am.
Well, lately, when I've been out there talking to the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie, I've been called Drew Carey. And I'm starting to sign, actually, that way, too, now.
Oh, I hope you took that the right way, if there is a right way.
So as part of my platform,
I
obviously...
haven't asked you a question yet, have I?
Yeah, you talked about jobs.
What?
Okay,
I don't think he's
There's
asked
more,
the
there's
question.
more to it.
He just read the title of the question.
Did you want to sit here, Rory? You can make up your own questions. Okay, jobs and economy. Are you ready? How does the city of Sault Ste. Marie involve itself in increasing employment and job opportunities? Will your focus be on knowledge-based jobs or resource-based jobs?
Well, you know, we got to make sure that we're firing on what we do best, leverage what we do best. Obviously, we got some skill sets within the technology field. We have the Innovation Center. We've got a university, and we got a college that are doing great things in those areas. We have businesses here like Pollard who are doing great things. We got Createch and the newly announced Plato. So we are making fields in those areas, but we also need to make sure that we're supporting the development of what we do best, which is to make steel, to bang steel, form steel, weld steel. We need to become a center for steel. We need to make sure that we're supporting an environmentally sound development of the Noront ferrochrome facility. Now, that's a long time play. It is 5 to 7 years away, if not 10 years away. So we need to take action today to make sure that we have a community which is good to do business in, and that means getting rid of the red tape, getting rid of the bureaucracy, developing good teams and a great focus on how we make things happen, and don't get these opportunities captured in the red tape.
All right. Christian, I choose you
Thank you.
to answer.
I appreciate that, sir.
You're welcome.
So I think actually one of the things that I'm most proud of for this council and for my involvement is how we've made a transition to really focus on community development. I think it's essential that you develop a community that people want to live in. It'll address some of the issues that Ted's raising here. But Rory has raised a lot of successes that we've had over the last few years. I've led the community to final consideration with 2 other communities for a $1 billion economic project. And we have to make sure the rest of that process is responsible and that we continue to work closely with our First Nation partners. and Noront as that unfolds. But we have Plato, which is a great win for our community. We have Createch, which is a great win for our community. So we have to keep on working with our partners, with the Innovation Center and with the EDC, but we have to do our part as a city. We have to focus on providing good services. We have to make sure that we are making the proper investments in our community so it's accessible and it's welcoming. And the reality is that jobs are going to be following people. One of the biggest things I hear from employers is, the biggest question I've heard over the last 4 years is, do you have the people for me? If you have the people for me, I will come to your community. JD Arrow is a great example. I've been spending a lot of time with JD Arrow recently to see how the city could help JD Arrow, because JD Arrow said we can employ 50 new people every year, guaranteed, year over year, and we can go from 140 employees to 300. We have that business book if we could find the people.
Ted?
The people being referred to in the last question are very highly trained people, are they not?
No, not on JD Arrow.
What type of jobs are they
Well,
doing?
they have college training, and JD Arrow said that they only need a certain level of training, and they'll bring them the rest of the way.
Okay, so they
They do need training.
require a large amount of coming to the city with already training. What about the people who are already here? That most of them don't qualify for that. Now, I worked for a company that had a plant in a small town, 3,500 people. How do you get people to come to a town of 3,500 people? You know, we wanted to expand the plant, there just wasn't any people to do it. Here we've got tons of people that aren't working, and they're still not going to be working if GD Arrow expands because they don't fill the fit for what is there. You need a wide spectrum of stuff available to a wide spectrum of people. You need to be able to find work for everybody at every level. We all have to share in the success of the city, not just a select few small number of people or small number of companies.
Thank you. I have another question. This time I'm going to start with Christian, but I have to ask something. Tell me again.
Plato. It's called Plato.
I got so excited because I thought we were getting a Play-Doh manufacturing company here. And
Plato.
Plato, like the philosopher.
Like the philosopher.
Not like the plasticine.
Not Play-Doh, no.
Darn it. That Play-Doh sounds like more fun than Plato. But anyway, we're all happy to have jobs. That's all that really matters, right? Okay, here we go. Jobs and economy. We're carrying on. You didn't know what you were getting yourself in for, did you, Ted? All right. Christian, how are you going to make it advantageous for the local citizens and outside interests to invest in Sault Ste. Marie?
Well, this council had passed a CIP. A CIP is a community improvement plan, and it allows the council to offer tax incentive to new or growing industry. So that's one of the things that we've done. We still have our economic development fund, but one of the things that we're focused on really in working with the EDC and the Innovation Center now to do is to develop our labor force. Ted makes a good point. There's a lot of people here that need a job. And so we have to assist those people and find the resources to assist those people that they can get the training they need to find jobs that are available in this community. And we're having meetings with the college and the university and talking about these things. And I think we've made some great strides. I think that I really commend the university for meeting with Algoma and assessing some of Algoma's needs and developing some programs at the university through their business school that Algoma's needing. And I can tell you, when I called the college and said, look, JD Arrow has a challenge, they want to talk about, the college came out with me to the airport to meet with JD Arrow. We have to do more of that. The mayor has to act as a facilitator and connect people so that we don't only have opportunities for people to migrate to our community, which we need, we have opportunities for the people that are living in our community.
I'm going to go to Rory next and let you speak, Rory.
So 82% of all jobs are created by small business that exist right in your own backyard. We need to make sure that we have an environment that allows businesses to start, to grow, and to stay in business. We've lost approximately in the last 5 years 600 businesses, and our GDP has been stagnant. Do we really have that environment that exists today? It's mired with red tape, bureaucracy, sometimes taking a year to get a permit for a business to expand. We need to make sure that we're looking at that process to make sure we've got an environment in which business can thrive and which they can develop. Part of that is also supplying workforce training. It is partnering with all stakeholders to make sure that we're delivering to companies that are existing in our community, that they have the workforce available to them. But also we got to go out and hunt new business. We got to get out from behind the desk and go hunt down businesses to bring them to our community. We need to go out because like a hunter, you eat what you kill. and you need to gotta get out there and you gotta sell Sault Ste. Marie.
And Ted?
I especially like the very last statement. When you are looking to grow, you have to find something to grow on. If you're eating the bare minimum just for survival, you won't grow. Sault Ste. Marie is not growing. In fact, demographics say it's been shrinking. So how do you get that turned around? How do you make it so that Sault Ste. Marie starts to grow again? How do you make Sault Ste. Marie the place to grow? You do have to be very proactive. You have to go out and get it. You also need to be innovative. Oh, they did this in Sault Ste. Marie, but it was the first time it's ever been done. That's what we need to start hearing. We need to start making other communities mimic what we're doing, not mimicking what they're doing. By mimicking what other communities are doing, we're always going to be behind. We've got to have our own innovation from us that makes us the ones out front that everybody else is mimicking. The ideas will come from you.
I'm going to keep you working now, Ted.
Uh-oh.
You're up next. Small and medium enterprises are critical to jobs and economic growth. Our local EDC reported in 2017 that 184 new business startups and 38 business expansions happened right here in Sault Ste. Marie. How can the Northern Heritage Fund Small Business Startup and Business Expansion Funds help businesses grow better? And how can the City of the Sioux increase business startups as a way to revitalize all business districts across the city?
When you're dealing with trying to bring in business and jobs, again, it's the proactive approach that you have to take. When I last looked into it, there were 106 different programs that you could apply for as an individual to get a grant to start a business. 106. That's a daunting number. By the time you went through and actually checked the red tape on all these 106, your chance to open your business was gone because you just spent a year and a half just looking at trying to get the money. You need to condense everything down so that everything is available to you in one web visit or one phone call. It's a huge amount of work, an absolutely huge amount of work, but it needs to get done. We need to make it dirt simple for a person to start a business. We need to make it dirt simple for somebody to expand their business. We need to have the ability to just say, here you go. This is where you should call, this is what you should do next, and this is where you're going after that.
Rory?
Well, with results like that and creating over $3 million in tax property, which I know, I sat on the board of directors for the Economic Development Corporation, and you don't achieve a great economic base or a great place to do business by gutting the one agency that you have and creating another within the public administration, terminating 5 people out of that organization and creating another 5 within the municipality. You need to create an environment where it's easy to start a business. Young fella, 16-year-old, wants to put a hot dog cart up on Queen Street. What do? $5 million in liability insurance. You know how many hot dogs you got to sell? Apparently, I'm the wiener salesman of the universe, so, you know, I don't know if you saw that article in Sault today, but anyways, we need to make it more easy for people to be in business. If you want to put that patio out on Queen Street, 8 different departments to sign off on your plan. That should be, put it up on the website, sign off, I accept the terms and conditions, done, pay your fee with your MasterCard, you're in business.
Christian?
Okay, so let's start here. We saw the EDC results this year. The EDC championed those results. We've heard some positive numbers. Those results came after we reduced the EDC budget. And I will tell you unequivocally that I think that is one of the best things council did this term. And I think what council did was make a very serious decision to invest in its own community, and it's evident by the results that we didn't hamper the EDC's ability to actually accomplish what it's supposed to. I felt very strongly, and we talk about return on taxpayer dollar, that the taxpayers in the city of Sault Ste. Marie weren't getting a proper return for $1.75 million to the EDC. And council did something about it, because council agreed. And we switched that up, and we've taken that money, and we're investing that money in our community. I don't know if it takes a year to get a building expansion permit, but I can tell you unequivocally that the city of Sault Ste. Marie doesn't issue building expansion permits. I'm a small business in this community. I operate a small business in this community. I employ 9 people in this community, and I pay commercial taxes in this community. I am part of the business community here. I understand what it takes for it to succeed, and we're doing what we need to at City Hall as best as we can.
All right, next question. I'm going to start with Rory. Jobs and economy, Rory. An April 2017 decision by City Council to increase the industrial municipal tax rate for small-scale industrial facilities by roughly 55% for every dollar of assessment has resulted in a current tax rate of 6.387%. In an effort to reduce the sting of this increase, the taxes are spread over a 10-year, increase is spread over 10 years. Tax reductions have been offered for the first 3 years of new construction, and incentives for new capital equipment purchases have been offered. But still, local industrial ratepayers in this separate tax class express concern as they see these as barriers towards economic success. Do you see this taxation policy as a positive or a negative to overall economic investment and growth? Sorry, again, do you see this taxation policy as a positive or a negative to overall economic investment and growth?
And all that, Tim, in 90 seconds. So it is not a positive comparative. You compete as an investment globally. We have one of the highest published tax rates on the industrial and commercial. If you go on the website, it is one of the highest in North America. If you invest $100,000 or $1 million, you will be taxed at about $110,000 plus your education rate. So, is that competitive? No, it is not. We raised the taxes with the restructuring at Algoma, 56.7%. It was allocated over 10 years, yes, but it's still 56.7%. So if you're going to make a new investment or you're going to pull up the tax rate on the city's website, you're going to look at it and say, OMG, what am I getting? And they factor that into a total return on investment. Yes, it is only one part of several examinations, but we're talking about companies in your backyard that are stopping their investment because of the tax burden it will actually place on them. That's creating more jobs.
Christian?
So, look, in 2017, there was a significant drop in the value of Algoma. So as a result of that significant drop, the assessment base there fell. So City Council had a decision to make. It could either collect those taxes from the residential taxpayers, the non-industrial taxpayers, or it could increase the rate so it's taking roughly the same amount from those taxpayers. So the increased rate is capped, and it's put in over time, so nobody paid 56% more. I think it was roughly 7% more, and it was a small number of taxpayers. But that's regrettable, and City Council had a tough time with that decision. I know all of us had a tough time with that decision, but we weren't going to take those taxes and put them on the residential taxpayer. But I want to say this about competition. Right now we're competing. We're competing for a large-scale industrial project, and it's difficult when you're the mayor competing for the project, when you have to talk over your chamber who's constantly criticizing your business environment. But I did that. And one of the things that I did was deal with Noront and walk them through the taxes. And you know what? Noront doesn't believe our taxes are uncompetitive because you do not compare them based on rate. You compare them on actual taxes paid, which is a different formula. So Noront satisfied that our industrial taxes are just as competitive with the other cities they were looking at in Northern Ontario.
And Ted?
Again, we're back to improvement. Did we do okay? Noront seems to think so. I'd like to talk to them again in 3 or 4 years and see if they still think so. Because we're going nowhere but up. Up, 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 up all the time. If your wages are going up at this rate and your taxes are going up at this rate, the two lines eventually collide at a point where you run out of money, where your disposable income is gone. A business looks at that. A business looks at, here's my costs, here's what I'm making, eventually I'm going to hit that joint and I'm not going to be making any more money. They will not invest in a community in which those lines are converging that way. It's not going to happen. A businessman will not do that. We need to change that around. We need to make sure that we're making those lines diverge, not converge.
Christian, we're starting this question
Sure.
with you. Process and procedures. Recently, there have been changes to the Municipal Act in terms of having municipalities fill in positions for municipal ombudsman, lobby registrar, integrity commissioner, and an auditor general. What steps will you take to promote open public scrutiny of the appointment of such offices?
So, depending on the size of your municipality, those appointments aren't necessarily mandatory. We have taken a number of measures over the last number of years to make sure that our municipality is transparent. We have, I'm happy to say, a brand new code of conduct that's a much more substantial code of conduct than the code of conduct we had. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but the code of conduct that was there when I was the mayor, if you had a complaint about a city councillor, I had to adjudicate that, but the reality was you weren't allowed to make the complaint unless you were a sitting councillor. So it wasn't much of a code of conduct because it didn't give you any access. We've completely changed our code of conduct, and we have a proper one now. The other positions that you've raised, you either hire those positions in-house or you are able to access those services. I prefer accessing those services because it will keep the levy down. Every one of those positions we bring in-house is another senior manager or administrator that will be full salary, pension, benefits. We can have those services on a contracted basis and keep those people outside of City Hall because the reality is we don't have a significant number of complaints.
Ted?
As a member of the ratepayers organization, I was one of the people who lobbied the provincial government successfully to get the changes to the Municipal Act to make sure that this stuff happened. Back in 2001 was the first time the province said your municipalities should have these things. 2001, the province said the municipalities should have these things. What year is it now? 17 years later. Do we have them? No. They had to be forced to do it. The legislation had to be changed. I helped change it. I spent lots of hours, lots of my personal time to make sure that this happened. He's right in one way. The outside, that's a better way to do it. You want them totally disconnected from your community. You want them to be independent so that when you ask them to look into an issue, they are unbiased and will come back with an honest recommendation. That's what the positions are for. They're there to promote transparency and accountability in government, which we need desperately.
And Rory, what's your take?
Yeah, I agree full-heartedly. Governance is a critical part of running an organization, and certainly as city council, you should be committed. Accountability and responsibility is a table stake of being in public service, of being an elected official. It's not a platform. Transparency, I ask. Transparency in how much were the severance costs since 2014 that the city had to incur with exiting 10 people from its organization. What is the transparency around all the meetings that have happened within the Community Adjustment Committee? What was the transparency for all the meetings that are happening right now with the committees of the Sault Ste. Marie future Sault Ste. Marie? They are not open to the public. I still don't understand why that is the case. If we are trying to build a community moving in one direction, you don't think we should be able to participate in those committee meetings?
And we go to our next question now. Sort of a follow-up, actually. Do you feel that the appointment of the current Integrity Commissioner was done in a fair and transparent fashion? If so, how? If not, what could have been done differently? Ted, we're starting with you.
I live here. I do not recall anything that came out in the media about the hiring of an integrity commissioner. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm not saying that there wasn't a media story on it. I'm not saying there wasn't even several media stories on it. What I'm saying is, I'm a resident of the community, and I never heard nothing about it. How many other residents of the community never heard nothing about it? I'm going to say quite a few. Probably even a majority. So here we have, you're supposed to be open, you're supposed to be transparent, you're supposed to collect the information from the people, you're supposed to get them involved in the government. The Municipal Act says your role as an elected representative is to get public input. So why isn't there any?
Rory?
I would echo what Ted has said, but we know that in the modern world, communication is pretty simple. If you want to reach out to somebody, you Facebook, you Twitter, you Instagram, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So why did we not use those channels? And if we did, why did we not use them effectively? So we need to make sure that we're communicating to our citizens that we want input from them. We want to make sure that we're taking that input and we're actually converting it into action. We're not just telling them to go sit on a committee so that we can pretend that we just listened to them and then just make the decision that we wanted. We want to make sure that we're communicating to your elected officials exactly what the desires of the citizens of Sault Ste. Marie are. Here, I believe, as Ted has referred to, perhaps a failure in that communication.
Christian?
Okay, so the Code of Conduct Council and Open Council struck a committee. That committee met in open. The agenda for that committee was published in open, and the ratepayers sent somebody to that committee. So anybody was welcome. With respect to the Integrity Commissioner, that was something Council did in open. Council followed its procurement and tendering policies. Council followed those policies. Council put out a tender for that service. That came back. That was at Council again. Council had a discussion. Council chose one of the tenders. All of the hiring of the Integrity Commissioner and all of the development of the Code of Conduct was done in open council or open committee. So those agendas are published and they're public, and anybody can come in City Hall and anybody can come to those meetings, and people did. So that's how that happened.
Next question, we're going to start with Rory. This is around safety. Rory, are you satisfied that we have an adequate level of police services in this community? How would you direct the police board to make needed improvements, if you feel there are any?
I've talked to over 6,000 citizens in the past couple months, and I'll tell you, this is a critical issue. It's an issue that I continually hear, that we as a community do not feel safe. And we don't feel safe because we don't have the ability to have our police officers on the street, making sure that our citizens are taken care of. But those solutions don't happen from upon high. They happen when you talk and you communicate, not only to the citizens that you serve, but also to those that are delivering that service. You need to make sure that you're understanding from top to bottom how that organization works, how they technically apply the laws and regulations and duties upon which they are bound to, and what those resources look like, and how are those resources deployed. So you need to make sure that you're speaking to those frontline people, and again, building the capacity for them to deliver the services that they determine.
Mr. Provenzano.
So I recognize this is a critical issue. It's one that we've worked hard on over the last number of years, and you know, I'm really proud of the police chief we currently have. I think he was a fantastic hire, and I think he got to work really quick, and I think he's working well with the force. Look, we need our officers to be in the front line. This police chief is focused on getting officers in the front line. We have an adequate budget. We spend roughly $26 million plus on policing. We did not decrease that budget. Matter of fact, we increased the budget this year because we recognize that this is something of concern across the community, and we want to make sure that people feel safe. And we have, as a whole police service board, told the police chief we support him in the efforts he's making. He is making concerted effort to deal with some of the challenges our community has, and we have to keep on working with him, and we have to have the confidence in him to lead the force. And I think he has the confidence of the force, and I can tell you that the police service board has no interest or no desire in decreasing the size of the force. We think we have an adequately sized force. We just have to make sure we're deploying them properly. But those deployment issues are decided by the chief and the deputy chief. They're not decided by the mayor or the other people in the police service board.
Mr. Johnston.
Just last night, there were 2 police cruisers in my back alley for almost 6 hours. They came back twice else during the day. Now, they may not have been the exact same police cruisers. It may have been different ones. I see a police presence in my neighborhood all the time. I live on Albert Street down by the bridge. It is, by most definitions of most people, not a good neighborhood. There's a lot of crime in that neighborhood, so I see a lot of police cars. I hear a lot of police sirens. I hear a lot of emergency response sirens as they're heading past my house to go down into Jamestown. I have that happening all the time. I live in it every day. I know exactly what everybody who complains about the crime rates and everything are going through. And I have nothing but sympathy for the police force because I think that they're overtaxed. Are we doing what we can for them? They're trying. Again, can we do better? Yes, we certainly can.
Christian, I'll start with you on this question around safety. As a result of the opioid epidemic, emergency services are often called out to respond to cases of overdose. Do you feel we have enough emergency resources available on the ground to ensure that all other emergencies occurring at the same time are properly attended to?
Yeah, we are not overstaffed in any of our emergency services. So those are services that it would be great if we could have extra staff in all of them. The reality, and we've talked about this a lot tonight, it comes down to what we can pay for. The ability of the community to afford a service. And there is a tipping point. There's a tipping point because we have a lot of seniors in this community. We have a lot of people in this community on fixed income. So you're struggling. It's a balance. You have to find the balance as to between what people can afford and where the tax rates can be and what your service levels are. I would love to increase service levels across all of those safety initiatives because they're critical. But we have certain monetary limitations, and we have to do our best in those monetary limitations and allocate the resources as best as we can, and we're trying. And it's not been easy this term. We've had a lot of challenges to deal with, but we're doing our best to meet them.
All right, thank you. Mr. Johnson.
One of the things that happens in something like emergency services is the same thing that happens to soldiers when they're exposed to combat. When you're in that high-stress situation all the time, day after day, you begin to suffer from what modern psychiatrists call post-traumatic stress disorder. They have discovered that it is just as prevalent in EMS responders as it is in soldiers on the front line. What's going to happen down the road is that's going to start contributing to a problem within the EMS service. We've got to start looking at a way to deal with that right now before it becomes a major concern, before it starts taking people off the roster because they need to recover. We've got to put a plan in place where that's going to be looked at, and we've got to put a plan in place yesterday. After that, the basic thing of what's going on in the opioid crisis, there's tons of stuff that can be done, and I wish I had time to talk about it all.
All right.
Our next question.
Do I get a chance?
Yeah,
Oh,
he
Rory.
has an answer, Jim.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies, Rory.
Yes, Rory, go ahead.
I appreciate that.
Did you want to hear the question again?
No, I think we're good.
All right.
I have heard that this is the #1 issue in Sault Ste. Marie, and I think you've heard an omission and a failure to lead. We need to take this bull by the horn, and we need to wrestle it to the ground, not to the ceiling. We need to take effective action. What we saw in W5 was an embarrassment, sitting on the police board, and a failure to recognize the crisis of which that community is under. The failure to put the right resources into the services that can help us recognize that issue and deal with that issue. When you have to ask for intervention for the negotiation in a fire department, that sends a huge signal that you are not dealing fairly with those individuals that are applying the service to resolve the #1 issue in Sault Ste. Marie.
Thank you, Rory. Yes.
Now, Ted.
It was the orange shirt, that's what it was.
That's what it was, yes. The city employs a variety of highly qualified individuals in various departments. Why then does the city hire outside consultants, arbitrators, and legal services? Can you give us an example when this has occurred, and how would you minimize those costs in the future?
The arbitration thing is sort of out of the city's control. Arbitration is a provincial issue. Some of the other stuff is also touched by other levels of government. It's not entirely up to the city to deal with this kind of stuff. The stuff where the city's having problems with things, like arbitration, you need to lobby the other layers of government to change the way things are being done. Lobby groups need to get organized. The Association of Ratepayers has ran several different lobby campaigns to get legislation altered to make it better for the people who are in the community. That's one of the things that you need to do as a community. You need to get people together, and you need to modify the legislation to make things better. Now, other than the arbitration issue, I'm almost out of time.
Outside consultant, legal
Yeah.
services?
I would never hire a consultant. My consultants are right there and on the other end of the camera.
Thank you, Ted. Rory?
My platform will reduce and restrict consultants. You will have to demonstrate to council that there is a return on taxpayers' dollars if you are going to hire a consultant. We have expertise internal to the organization that should have the capability and the environment in which it is safe to make a good and solid decision. We have a community that has talent, it has the intellectual capacity, and it has the willpower to roll its sleeve up and get it done to work. I saw a great example of this in the discussion of two-way streeting on Queen Street, where we were set up, we bought a consultant, and you walk in the room and said, the consultant came up with 4 choices, we've narrowed it down to 2, and we're gonna pick 1. Really, so why do we hire the consultant for a project that was already on the books for the past 5 years? 5 people sat down, solved every solution, challenge that had been put out to 2A and Queen Street, and that was rated. And we didn't even have to go outside the room because those people solved it right there and had the talent to solve it right from our own community. So we need to look home first. We need a Sault Ste. Marie first procurement policy that will also follow into the consultant's role.
Christian?
So I want to speak to a couple of things here. It's odd to hear Mr. Ring talk about a Sault Ste. Marie first procurement policy, because when the United States levied tariffs on steel, as the leader of the chamber, he discouraged people from not shopping across the river. And frankly, I don't shop across the river, and I was encouraging people not to shop across the river because the United States is doing something very unfair to our country. And also, I want to make one point. Mr. Rings identified something as the primary issue in this campaign. Tonight is the first time he has spoken about it. We are almost near the end of this campaign. There's less than 3 weeks left. Every sign I have seen has said lower taxes, more jobs. They see nothing about this issue that he has identified as the primary issue in this campaign, and that I've been working on hard for a number of years. And I have 20 seconds to answer your main question, which was on consultants. Look, the city doesn't have all this expertise in-house. So the city doesn't keep this expertise in-house specifically because it costs a salary, and it costs pension, and it costs benefits. So when city council and city staff need an expertise, we go out to get that expertise. We're sensitive to how much we do that, and we do that only when necessary.
You don't cost anything.
Well, you don't know that about me. I'm very expensive.
Very. Now, what we're going to do is give an opportunity to each of our candidates to ask a question to another of their candidates of their choice. Please limit your answers to 1 minute each, and 1 minute each for rebuttal as well. And Rory, we're starting with you. Who would you like to ask your question to?
Well, I'll ask Mr. Provenzano if you could please explain to our audience what your platform is. What are your action items? What is that you see you taking in your first steps?
Sure. So my platform is available on my website, christianprovenzano.ca. I've also made sure 25,000 homes in the city have my brochure, which has it outlined in it. I want to continue what we started 4 years ago. I want to continue making life more affordable for the people in this community. I want to focus on creating a safe community. I want to help support and focus on dealing with our opioid crisis. I want to make sure that we make investments in our downtown. And I want to really focus our community on community development. I want to invest in and build the community that we want to live in, as opposed to simply year by year maintaining the community that we have. I have roughly 9 points that I've outlined that are really important to me, and that I hope the next council would work with me on. But one of the most important things you have to recognize when you're the mayor is you need to do something in a team and with a group. So once the people are elected and you come together, you will see very shortly which projects you will be able to work on with that group. And certainly you try and lead and get that group focused on some of the community's largest challenges. I think we've done a great job of that this term. I think we have a great community plan, and I want to implement that plan.
Rory, do you have a rebuttal?
You have a minute to speak if you'd like.
Oh, yeah, I think, again, you know, just to address the comment around our opioid addiction, if you actually read my platform, it does have at the bottom that we need to support our frontline services, EMS, fire, those people who are dealing with that crisis at every single time that it occurs. And I've been speaking to those individuals and securing that information, and it is in the platform, sir. We need to ensure that we are leading by example, and you speak to team, and you speak to creating an environment that fosters team and fosters knowledge and fosters growth. After working within the city and dealing with the folks within that city realm, I am very, very concerned about whether that even exists. You need to be able to happy to go to work. You need to be able to enjoy and focus and not be stressed by an environment that's being created because of the pressures. I think we need to make sure that our citizens, again, are re-engaged to ensure that everybody is healthy and physically and mentally fit.
And Christian, your turn now. Who would you like to ask a question to?
Oh, I'll ask Mr. Ring the question. So, Mr. Ring, being the mayor of a community and representing a community, you speak for the entire community. You also have to know the community to understand the issues in the community and to know the people in the community that you have to work with to move issues forward. I was born and raised in this community. My grandparents were born in this community. My parents live in this community. I am entirely invested in this community. My 2 little girls are born in this community, and they will grow up in this community. How do you see that you can move to a community and in less than 3 years ask everybody in that community to make you its primary leader?
Well, I think that comes through bringing some experience by recognizing that there's an opportunity for change. I believe that if you, sir, as stated, want to grow from 70 to 100,000 people, you need a lot more of me. You need a lot more of her. You need a lot more of this young lady who has returned to this community, invested in downtown, and is committed to make a future here. I am here committed for a future. I am here to bring about what I believe will get us off the shore and into that power boat that's blowing by us. I sat there on the shores of St. Mary's and watched these power boats go by, thinking, I'm Sault Ste. Marie and I'm standing still. I'm standing still. I got to get off the shore and into that boat because, as Ted mentioned, if you're standing still, the world has gone by you. That is why I'm standing here today, sir. And I have instilled myself in this community as a citizen.
Christian, rebuttal?
So it's a number of times I've heard about this boat race, and I'm pretty proud of the boat race because that's something new that's happened over this term of council. I think what this term, we've done, this council, is we have really started embracing our future moving forward. We started a large-scale community consultation, and I was just one participant in that. It was not led by the city participated in, but what I said to those people was, we will find the resources, and we will find the people, and we will implement this plan. We have a broad-based community plan. We have a team of 6 talented people working in that community plan. We have $4 million to invest in that community plan, and we did all of that without increasing the levy. So I would suggest to everybody respectfully that this council did its best in very difficult circumstances, managed those circumstances, and found the time and the importance of looking forward and creating a future and plan for our community. There's no doubt about my commitment to this community. There's no doubt about my investment in this community.
Ted, who would you like to ask a question of?
I am not going to put forward asking a question. I think that the records of Mr. Ring and the records of Mr. Provenzano speak for themselves. What we have seen in this community over the last 4 years is decline and neglect. So, do you want more decline and neglect, or do you want a chance for growth? It's up to you.
We've come to the point in the program where we're going to offer an opportunity to our candidates to give us their closing remarks. Once again, we're asking you to keep your remarks to 1 minute. Is that correct? 1 minute for closing remarks, gentlemen? And we're going in this order. This was also drawn before the debates began. Ted, your name came up first for closing remarks, so the floor is yours.
Closing remarks in a minute's pretty tough.
Mm-hmm.
A little over 30 years ago, on a patch of sand and rock halfway around the world from here, a group of young Canadians got together. They were members of the Canadian Armed Forces. They dug up and disposed of over 8,000 landmines, disarmed them, got rid of them. That's what Canadians do. We don't produce landmines and put them into the soil to kill people. We go halfway around the world and dig them up to save lives. That's 8,000 little kids that didn't get their legs blown off because they wanted to chase a soccer ball. That's what Canadians can do when they stop saying no and start saying yes. The man who taught me how to disarm landmines died on that UN deployment. He left behind a wife and 2 little children. He didn't do that. They didn't do that. So that you all would not take part in your democracy.
Thank you, Ted. Christian.
So you can't, there's not a lot you can hit in a minute. So I'm just going to hit, I think, what are the high points. When I ran in 2014, I ran on leadership, accountability, and responsible spending. And I stand before you today sincerely believing that I have served those values, I have tried to serve you, and I have tried to serve our community. We have tried to make life more affordable. We reduced the sewer surcharge. We held the line on water increases for a year. We held the line on distribution increases. We decreased the majority of our tax rates. We are sensitive to the issues in this community. I am sensitive to the challenges we have. I am working on them. You will not find a community partner who will not tell you that is dealing with those challenges, whether they be criminal challenges or whether they be the opioid challenge, that I am not there and that I am not supportive. I am there, I am supportive, I am committed to this community. It was my grandparents' home. They were all born here. It is my parents' home. My little girls were born here. I'm a business person in this community. I am not going anywhere. I care about it, and I want to serve you for 4 more years to finish the good work that we started.
And Rory, closing remarks?
Yep, more jobs filled, lower taxes, quality of life. 3 key elements I think that we need for Sault Ste. Marie to catapult itself forward. It is a vision. It is just not a slogan. It is a commitment to apply the appropriate resources to achieve that vision. A vision that is prosperous, a vision that is great for our youth. It is welcoming to our youth. It'll create a great investment opportunity, and it'll make sure that the values that Sault Ste. Marie holds dear are also maintained into the future. But we will do that with a broader base, better economic sustainability, and a future for everyone to participate in.
Thank you very much. Before I turn it over to Luann to thank you for being here and say good night, I do want to acknowledge some people who made this evening possible. Paul Sachin is the technical director and the electrician for this evening's production. Thank you, Paul. Trenton Willens, our audio engineer. Trenton, thanks for making us sound good. Hannah Nicoletta, lighting programmer and lighting operator. Thanks for keeping them soft and making me look pretty. And Caleb Patterson back over there, our gaffer. Thanks for looking after my car keys, Caleb. Luann, I turn it over to you.
And also a huge thank you to Wireless Communication. Worked very, very hard and diligently for us. Carmen and Luke, thank you very much. So
I feel like Tony Robbins.
We need your exercise machine. We've reached the conclusion of our evening tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We hope that you've been properly informed so that when you go to the polls on October 22nd, you feel comfortable casting your vote for your preferred candidate. We remind you that advanced polls occur on Saturday, October 6th, Wednesday, October 10th, and Saturday, October 13th. So as you leave the auditorium tonight, you'll have an opportunity to meet with your candidate outside in the main lobby for further discussion. We thank each and every one of you for coming out this evening and supporting the Sault Ste. Marie Association of Ratepayers Mayoral Debate 2018. And thank you, all our on-TV viewers, for watching. Good night.